Hey pioneers, and welcome back. How's been your week? Mine is pretty cool. I'm taking 2 days off work this week and I'm going to fly to visit some family. I'm gonna surprise my mom. That's going to be a nice surprise. But well, in the meantime, the factory must grow. We are working towards saving humanity, done a lot of progress, but still we are only scratching the surface. So let's pick something to do. All of this page looks scary. Let's try to work on our thermal propulsion rockets. We already have these two modules. So maybe let's focus on the heavy modular frames. This recipe, I chose the recipes to simplify the materials. We only need iron, water, and limestone. And we have already the limestone prepared somewhere around this place. Oh, that was a bad jump. This belt over here contains all of the limestone and caterium I'm gonna be needing, so I need to take a little bit of that limestone and put the rest back on the same belt, but it's already there. Then water, we have water prepared, and iron, there was a pure node we prepared on the last video that's coming from there. I can take any amount of iron I want, and that won't affect neither this load balancer nor that stage. So we have everything. Now where do we build it? I have no idea. I guess that I should try to fill up these gaps. So maybe we could try to do it over here. Let's see how it goes. There we go, we have 7 happy refineries doing us iron ingots. And in order to pull that off, I had to build this monstrosity that I hid on this corner. What is this? Why do I do this? Well, I do it because I'm weird, but what is it? This factory requires 231 plus 1,897 divided 5,265 iron ingots, and this is my last project. I want everything to be load balanced and all of the numbers to be exactly what modeler tells me, and that's what this guy over here is achieving. The number I just mentioned is this. We need 231.360304 iron ore, and they are receiving exactly that. How do I know? If I check on the refinery, it's working at 100%, and as you can see, the buffer never increases because it's receiving exactly the amount of iron it needs. And I also advanced a little bit because if I check the whole factory diagram, we also need iron somewhere else. We need iron over here. We need 322, 17 divided 162. That would be 322.10, and I'm already doing that split, and for the time being I'm sending it over there, 322. So I have all of the iron I'm gonna need prepared with exact decimals, and I don't know, I have fun that way. The output, we can see it over here. It oscillates because of the refinery, but how much were we supposed to be doing? We were supposed to be doing 429 with decimals, and well, that is 429, only that, as you can see, it has a weird shape. And the cool thing about these load balancers is that I'm reusing the principle I found on our last factory. All of this iron is coming from here, from a node. And we already have a load balancer here that's giving exactly the amount of iron I need for these 4 refineries. But I didn't have to rebuild this because I'm using a belt limiter at the beginning. So these refineries require less than 270, but I'm forcing 270, getting the amount I want, and giving back what I'm not using. And if we go to the monstrosity I've just built, it works the same. In this case, it's limiting to 480, and it's giving back whatever it doesn't use. That way, if in the future I want to take more iron, I can use exactly the same node, and none of these systems will change. Everything will stay nice and clean. So yeah, it's a mixture of load balancing and belt limiters. We can see over there, there's another belt limiter. Over there, there's another belt limiter. And over here we are supposed to have 1. If we have 1, that means that everything is working. I won't over-explain this because I could make a whole video telling how this works. But if you're interested, let me know. At least for me, this is a fun puzzle to solve. And I achieved having all of those decimals, and the refineries are happy. So let's continue. What else can we do? I guess that we could do these limestone ones. I already have the limestone prepared over there. Well, that's more limestone than I need, so I need to take some of it and return what I'm not using, and we could place the refineries right next to these ones. There we have it. It was only 1 refinery needed. Not a big deal. So this one is easier, I can explain it. We need 86.4 limestone, and we come with more than that, but I don't care how much because I'm using a belt limiter that simplifies everything. So this belt has an X amount of limestone and an X amount of caterium. What I'm doing over here is removing the limestone, autosave, and then the limestone I'm not using gets remerged further along. So what I'm doing with this limestone, I'm first going to a smart splitter that's sending everything this way, and the overflow goes back. Now this thing over here is a belt limiter to 90. So I do this to remove all of the decimals because it's a weird number and I don't want to deal with it. 90 is easy to work with. So then I have 90 and I wanted 86.4. So this is an easy load balancer. I only have to divide the belt by 25. That you would say, hey, dividing by 25, that's insane. But no, it's not. It's 4 splitters, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. And well, that gives me over here the 86 that I wanted. And the remaining 3.6 gets remerged with the other limestone we weren't using and goes back to our sushi belt. And the limestone we do care about is going to that lonely refinery. I connected it to the same pipe we were using for our iron, and we end up having 57 concrete, 58. How much were we supposed to do? We were supposed to do 57.6. All numbers are nice and clean, and I think that right now I can do all of this in a row. There's nothing special. I will have to divide the iron ingots. I hope this is not too hard. And then I will have to divide the steel pipes because they need to go to 2 different places. And I also need to divide the concrete. But these numbers are so scary. So we'll see how it goes. We are done with our heavy modular frames. And I honestly don't like it that much. This happened to me before. If I have lots of sets of machines, each doing something different. For example, that's 1 constructor, 2 constructors, 1 assembler, 3 assemblers. Like it all ends up being scattered around and not really cohesive. We have over there, I think, 2 assemblers. But well, it is what it is. I did add the final manufacturer hire to make it a little bit different and interesting to watch. And of course, this is not necessary, but I'm feeding the manufacturer only with 1 lift because I could. If everything is load balanced, that's something you can do that, at least for me, looks really interesting. 4 materials arriving via 1 belt. Now, the numbers were way harder than I thought. This division over here, I thought it was easy. It wasn't. We are splitting into 3 ways, and in order to achieve that, I ended up using 4 load balancers. That is 1, this one is another one, that one is another one, and that one is another one. Usually, if you want to split 3 ways, you could do it with only 2, but the numbers were too weird and it was too hard. For example, the concrete was extremely easy. It's only 1 balancer. That's done with my blueprint because the ratios were dividing the belt by 36 and merging some to one side and some to the other. So that would be this concrete division. Then the steel pipes division wasn't also that bad. We are dividing into 3 ways and we only have 2 load balancers. So that one makes sense. But yeah, the iron, I don't like it. We had a fight. But we are friends now. So we finally have the heavy modular frames. How much are we doing? We are doing 0? What? I just booted the game. Maybe it needs to update. Definitely. That monitor is dead. What's going on? 99. Well, maybe this is because I just started the game. But we don't have 0. This machine is working. 100. Weird stuff that happens. So what could we do next? This factory is already done. I would like to make the fuse modular frames. But in order to do that, we need to do this one first, the casings. And in order to do that, we need to find us some copper and some aluminum and some rubber. So I will have to be bringing stuff from many places. Well, eventually I'll have to do it. Let's go. So I'm already facing some issues. This is the belt that's bringing limestone and caterium ore. The one that we already took some caterium over there and we just took some limestone, and I decided, well, let's merge all of the materials over here. And not the materials we need exactly now, but the total amount of materials. So for example, the total amount of copper we need is 170. So I'm already grabbing, the node was underneath over here. I'm grabbing the 170 and putting it into that sushi belt. So every factory that needs it will remove a chunk and put back the rest. But what's the deal? I haven't noticed about this. I wanted to do the same thing with rubber. I need 304 with some decimals. Now, how much rubber do I have? If I go to my spreadsheet, I have one factory that's giving 200, so that's not enough. I have one factory that's giving 101.07, still not enough. And then I have a remaining 28 with a lot of decimals. So all in all, I have enough rubber, but I need to find these 3 belts, shove them all into that sushi belt, or maybe a new one. Maybe we are already over capacity, and then start taking rubber from there, which will be annoying. I will probably send all of it, so we will have a little bit more. And at the end of that sushi belt, I will have to place a sink so that I don't load balance the materials, because these are awful numbers. So, well, I don't know. I need to go and find rubber all over the place. Okay, I managed to get all of the rubber from the desert. This belt contains the rubber from 2 factories, and over there we have the 3rd factory that was producing rubber. And I did something stupid, but saves me a lot of time. What's the deal? By merging these 3 belts, I end up with this extremely awful number, 329.812159 of rubber. And I need a nice number, 304.6. That means that I would have to remove all of these, 25.21215.686. And that can be done with a load balancer, but it's insanity, and I didn't want to deal with that. So what I'm doing is, I'm first merging all of this rubber, which goes to a container, and then I placed a belt limiter. Here we have 270, here we have 40, we end up with 310. So I'm taking a little bit of rubber, that's why this is slightly increasing, and after a lot of time it will get full and it will end up going to the sink that I had already placed. So what do I win with that? I just removed a lot of decimals. So right now, I don't know why that's fluctuating. That's probably a bug from the monitor. Right now I don't have decimals, I have a beautiful number, and it will make all of my life easier. Of course, now I have 310, and I needed a little bit less. So at the end of the system, I will have to place another sink. So I'm having 2 sinks, I'm doing weird shenanigans, but I removed all of the decimals, and that makes me happy. So I think we already have, I still have to bring the aluminum. But well, I'll bring the aluminum and start placing these machines. Well, I looked for all of the aluminum we are going to need for this project. That would be the total amount, the 516, and I merged it to the rubber line. So in the end, we have 2 sushi belts, This one has all of the copper, all of the caterium, and all of the limestone we need for the whole project. And that one over there has all of the aluminum and all of the rubber with a little bit extra that I need to remember to take out at some point. And I started using those materials over this place. For example, here I'm removing all of the rubber and I'm returning the rubber that we won't be using for this module. So if we go over here, we can see that I'm taking out 42 rubber. That would be over here 43.2. So it should be between 43 and 44. And I'm also on this place, I'm removing all of the copper and I'm returning the copper I'm not using, placing it on the same sushi belt. And that copper is already being used. I placed over here 5 refineries doing copper ingots. Those would be these refineries that are supposed to give us 178 copper ingots. And to be absolutely sure that everything is working, we can see that they are at 100% and this number never increases. So it's balanced and we are sending exactly the amount of copper we needed. And in the end, this autosave ends up giving us 176 copper, 178. When you're using refineries, the monitors are not that reliable because this recipe is extremely bursty, but it's around that number. So what remains so that we can finish this one? I have to remove all of the aluminum, give back what I'm not going to use, then we will be able to do the casings, we will be able to do the heat sinks, and finally we will be able to do the fused modular frames. So I did a lot of stuff. We had to divide the aluminum I wanted, that in this case is a weird number. But if you calculate the total and you subtract this weird number, it happened to be that what we didn't need was exactly 160. So this is actually a belt limiter that's limiting to 160. We are sending that back and the overflow, whatever that number is what we need, which would be that belt. And I'm immediately merging it to the rubber we had prepared somewhere around here, and we start going this way, where I'm merging it to the heavy modular frames that are coming from that manufacturer. So far we have 3 materials, and I'm merging it to the copper ingots we just made, so we have a super sushi belt with 4 materials at this point. And then we start dividing it again. Over here I'm taking out my heavy modular frames that are going for our fused modular frames. Over here I'm taking out the rubber that are going for our heat sinks. And finally the 2 ingots get separated over here and we go for our aluminum casings. Everything is working at 100% and it's not accumulating materials. So that aluminum casing we needed to separate 43.2 for our heat sinks and the rest went out. That's been handled over here on this load balancer. That's giving us 43.2. That goes this way to our heat sinks. And then if we go out already of this factory, we can see that for our fused modular frames, we needed exactly 120. So there was no need for a load balancer because that's a Mark II belt. So over here, we are taking the 120 with a smart splitter that's trying to send everything to a Mark II belt, and it goes to our blenders that are doing fused modular frames. So over here we have the casings that we haven't used so far. Over here we have the fused modular frames. We are doing 2. How many were we supposed to do? 2.4. And the other thing we are doing are the heat sinks. This sink is beautiful. We have 14. How many were we supposed to be doing? 14.4. So we finally finished all of this and these 2 factories. These 2. So if we do the radio control units, and place a couple of machines, we would already have the thermal propulsion rockets, and we would be able to start with working on the main page. That it's a little bit scary. And I think there's not enough time to start something new. If not, the video will end up being too long. So we will call it a day. I feel that today's video was kind of dull. I'm sorry if I bored you to death. It was me mostly fighting against numbers. But well, that's what needed to be done in order to continue. Let me tell you a joke to compensate. Holy crap, do I know jokes in English? Donald uses keyboard and Mickey Mouse. Yeah, I definitely don't know jokes in English. Well, let me decorate this, we'll do a showcase, and we'll continue next week. Another factory done, and we are doing good progress. I think we might be around 50% of the whole project, so that's good news. Or bad, because it also means that I'm about to finish the game. But well, we are saving humanity. You might notice that I built a wall over here. I never built walls on the Mega Factory, basically because I'm growing all of the time and I don't know where it will go, so it's kind of throwing work and time down the drain. But in this case, I decided the Mega Factory will finish exactly over here. So I already built the wall. Why? Because, well, over here we have nature, water. I didn't want to bulldoze all of this. And we also have some weird rock formations that might be hard to work with. So we will be finishing over there. And I think that from next week onwards, we could work over this patch that it's pretty flat. There's a lot of space. I'd like to prevent having to work there, or maybe I can build something on the crater. But over here we still have more space, and we even have that zone over there. It would be amazing if I fit some machines, or maybe a trophy room. This sounds like a good place for a trophy room. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But from next week onwards we will be moving to a different place that it's also easier to work with. Everything is flat over here. I hope you guys had fun, and let's meet up next week. Let's keep on working to save humanity.